The Space Between Us. Chapter 1. The Dinner Party. The candles had burned down to stubs by the time Elena realized she was in trouble. Not the kind that announces itself with trumpets and warning signs, but the quiet kind that seeps into your bones like winter fog. The kind you don't notice until you're already lost. Across the table, Marcus was telling the story about the boat again. The one that nearly capsized off Santorini. The one where he'd supposedly saved 3 German tourists and a dog. She'd heard it a dozen times, knew exactly when he'd pause for effect, when he'd touch her shoulder to draw her into his triumph. She was his prop in this performance, his beautiful wife who gazed at him with appropriate adoration while their dinner guests leaned forward, rapt. But tonight, Elena wasn't listening to Marcus. Tonight, she was watching Iris watch Marcus, and something in her chest was pulling apart. Iris had arrived 3 hours earlier, carrying a bottle of wine they would never drink and an apology for being late that seemed to encompass more than just the evening. She was Marcus's colleague, newly transferred from the Chicago office, and Elena had prepared herself to be gracious, to be welcoming, to be the version of herself that made dinner parties successful. What she hadn't prepared for was the way Iris looked at her when they shook hands. A look that lasted 1 second too long, that communicated something Elena didn't yet have words for. "Your home is beautiful," Iris had said, and Elena heard. "You are beautiful. You're the architect," Marcus interjected, sliding his arm around Elena's waist. "She designed every inch of it. My wife has an eye for space. My wife." He said it like a brand, like a claim staked in unmapped territory. Now, as Marcus reached his story's crescendo, Elena let her gaze drift to Iris again. She was watching Marcus with polite attention, the kind you offer when you're playing a role. But every few seconds her eyes would slide to Elena, and in those moments the polite mask would slip. Elena knew that look. She'd seen it in her own mirror at 3 in the morning when she couldn't sleep, when she'd stand at the bedroom window and wonder if this was all there was. Beautiful rooms, beautiful lies, a beautiful life that fit her like borrowed clothes. And that's when I realized, Marcus was saying, that fear is just weakness leaving the body. The other guests murmured their approval. Iris's mouth curved into something that might have been a smile, but her eyes found Elena's again, and this time there was a question in them. "Do you believe this?" Elena looked away first, reaching for her wine glass. Her hand was steady but her pulse wasn't. "I think fear is more complicated than that," Iris said quietly, and the table went still. Marcus laughed, the indulgent laugh he used when someone was about to be educated. "How so?" "Fear protects us. It tells us when something matters enough to lose." Iris's voice was measured, calm, but her eyes hadn't left Elena's face. "Sometimes the bravest thing we can do is admit we're afraid." "That's just semantics," Marcus said, dismissing her with a wave. "Action is what counts. You can philosophize all you want, but at the end of the day you either jump or you don't. And if you're jumping off the wrong cliff?" The question hung in the air like smoke. Elena felt the room tilt slightly, as if the foundation she'd built this house on had suddenly revealed itself to be unstable. Marcus laughed again, but there was an edge to it now. "Then I guess you swim harder." The other guests shifted in their seats, sensing tension they couldn't quite name. Elena stood abruptly, her chair scraping against the hardwood floor she'd chosen after 3 months of deliberation. "Coffee?" she announced too brightly. "I'll make coffee." She escaped to the kitchen, her sanctuary of gleaming surfaces and perfect order. Her hands gripped the counter's edge, knuckles white. Through the doorway she could hear Marcus steering the conversation toward safer waters. His project in Dubai, his thoughts on the new city council, his opinions on everything and nothing. He likes an audience. Elena spun around. Iris stood in the kitchen doorway, backlit by candlelight, and for a moment she was just a silhouette, a shadow of possibility. "He's enthusiastic," Elena managed. "He's exhausting." Iris stepped into the kitchen, closing the distance between them. Not too close, propriety still held, but close enough that Elena could smell her perfume. Something woody and strange, nothing like the florals Marcus preferred. "You shouldn't say things like that." But Elena's voice lacked conviction. "Why? Because he's your husband? Or because you've been thinking the same thing?" The honesty was brutal, liberating. Elena had spent 6 years learning to speak in Marcus's language, the language of success and certainty, of decisive action and forward momentum. Iris was offering her something different. The dangerous grammar of truth. I don't, Elena started, but Iris raised a hand. You don't have to answer. I'm sorry. I don't usually. She paused, and for the first time that evening she looked uncertain. I don't usually feel this way about someone's wife. The words hung between them like a bridge or a warning. Elena's mouth was dry. Feel what way? Like I want to know everything. Like I want to hear what you actually think, not what you've learned to say. Iris's voice dropped lower. Like I want to know what would happen if you stopped being his beautiful prop and started being yourself. The coffee maker began to gurgle, filling the silence with its mundane announcement. Elena watched it, unable to meet Iris's eyes, unable to not feel the pull of them. I should go back, Iris said finally. Before he comes looking for you. Before he realizes we're alone. But neither of them moved. From the dining room came the sound of Marcus's laughter, assured and confident, the laugh of a man who had never questioned whether he was loved or why. Elena thought about fear, about jumping, about all the careful architecture she built to keep her life stable and perfect and safe. I designed this house to have no wasted space, she said quietly. Every room serves a purpose. Every corner is accounted for. And what about the spaces between? Iris asked. What about the places that don't fit into the plan? Elena finally looked at her, really looked at her, and saw herself reflected back. A woman trapped in a beautiful cage, afraid of the door she hadn't known was there until someone showed her where to look. I don't know how to answer that, Elena whispered. Then maybe, Iris said, backing toward the doorway. That's the answer. She disappeared back into the dining room, leaving Elena alone with the coffee and the question and the terrible, exhilarating knowledge that everything was about to change. Marcus appeared in the doorway moments later. Everything all right, love? You've been gone forever. Forever. Elena looked at him, her husband, her life, her choice, and felt the architecture of her certainty begin to crack. Everything's fine, she said, and carried the coffee back to the table where Iris sat, where Marcus held court, where the candles burned down to nothing, and where Elena began, for the first time in years, to feel the dangerous possibility of wanting something she couldn't name. The evening ended at midnight. The guests departed with promises to do it again soon, please. Such a lovely time. Iris was last to leave, shaking Marcus's hand, touching Elena's arm. A touch that lasted exactly as long as propriety allowed and communicated everything propriety forbade. When the door closed, Marcus pulled Elena close. That went well, don't you think? She rested her head against his chest, listening to his heartbeat, steady, certain, unchanged. Yes, she said. It went well. But as she climbed the stairs to their perfectly appointed bedroom, Elena thought about spaces between things, about fear, about cliffs worth jumping from. And she thought about how sometimes trouble doesn't announce itself with trumpets. Sometimes it arrives carrying wine and wearing perfume that smells like forests, and sometimes it looks at you like it sees who you actually are beneath all the beautiful architecture you've built to keep yourself hidden. Sometimes trouble feels exactly like waking up. Chapter 2. The Architecture of Longing. Elena didn't sleep that night. She lay beside Marcus in their king-sized bed. Another thing she'd chosen carefully, Norwegian oak frame, hand-stitched headboard, and watched the ceiling fan trace its endless circles through the dark. Marcus slept the way he did everything. Confidently, completely, without hesitation. His breathing was deep and even, the rhythm of a man unburdened by doubt. She envied him that, had always envied him that. When they first met, his certainty had felt like shelter. Now it felt like suffocation. At 4 a.m, she gave up. She pulled on a robe and went downstairs to her studio, the one room in the house that was entirely hers, that Marcus rarely entered because he didn't understand the language of blueprints and elevations, of spaces that existed only on paper. The drafting table was covered with her current project, a library renovation downtown, all soaring ceilings and natural light. She designed it to feel like a sanctuary, a place where people could breathe. She wondered if the irony was lost on her, or if she'd always known. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. I can't stop thinking about the spaces between things. Elena's hand trembled. She didn't need to ask who it was. She should delete it. Should block the number. Should go upstairs and wake Marcus and confess. Confess what? That a woman she'd met once had looked at her and seen something true? That for 3 hours at a dinner party, she'd felt more alive than she had in 3 years of marriage? Instead, she typed, "I designed this house to eliminate them." The response came immediately. "How's that working out?" Elena looked around her studio, at the careful shelves and organized supplies, at the architectural drawings of other people's dreams. Everything in its place. Everything accounted for. Everything except the hollow space in her chest that seemed to be expanding by the second. "I'm good at my job," she wrote. "But are you happy?" The question sat on her screen, glowing in the dark. Elena thought about all the ways she'd learned to answer that question over the years. The deflections, the subject changes, the cheerful affirmations that Marcus coached into her before parties and dinners and his company events. She thought about what Iris had said. "I want to hear what you actually think, not what you've learned to say." "I don't know," she typed. Then, before she could stop herself, "Can I see you?" The 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Elena's heart was doing something complicated in her chest, something that felt like falling and flying at once. "When?" "Tomorrow. There's a coffee shop on Belmont, near the river. 1 o'clock. I'll be there." Elena set the phone down and pressed her palms against her eyes. What was she doing? This wasn't her. She didn't lie, didn't sneak, didn't betray. She was the good wife, the supportive partner, the woman who'd chosen stability and built a life around that choice. Except she was doing all of it right now. Had done it the moment she'd typed those words. "Elena!" She spun around. Marcus stood in the doorway, squinting against the light, his hair endearingly disheveled. This was the Marcus she'd fallen in love with, the one who appeared in unguarded moments, vulnerable and human. "Couldn't sleep," she said. "Didn't want to wake you." He crossed to her, wrapped his arms around her from behind, rested his chin on her shoulder. "You work too hard. Come back to bed." She should. She should delete that text and climb those stairs and choose the life she'd already chosen. Should remember that Marcus loved her, that he was good to her, that there were worse things than being married to a confident, successful man who wanted her to shine at his side. But Iris's words kept echoing. What about the spaces between? What about the places that don't fit into the plan? "In a minute," Elena said. "I just need to finish something." Marcus kissed her temple. "Don't stay up too late. Love you." "Love you too." The words came automatically, muscle memory. She listened to his footsteps retreat up the stairs, waited for the bedroom door to close, then picked up her phone and stared at the glowing screen. "I'll be there." 3 words. Promise or a threat? A door opening or a floor collapsing? Elena saved the number under a fake name, Sarah, a client, and hated herself for the ease with which the deception came. Then she turned back to her drafting table and tried to focus on other people's buildings, other people's spaces, anything but the architecture of her own unraveling. Chapter 3: The Meeting. The coffee shop was called the Interim, which Elena decided was either perfect or unbearable. She couldn't tell which. It occupied a converted warehouse near the river, all exposed brick and industrial lighting, the kind of place that tried hard to feel accidental. She arrived 15 minutes early and ordered something complicated that she wouldn't drink. Claimed a table in the back, away from the windows, where she sat with her untouched latte and her phone and her certainty that this was a mistake. She should leave. Should text Iris and cancel. Should go home and spend the afternoon doing something normal, something that didn't involve lying to her husband about where she'd been. But she didn't move. At precisely 1 o'clock, Iris walked in. She was wearing jeans and a gray sweater, her hair pulled back, no makeup. Somehow she was more beautiful like this, or maybe Elena was just learning to see her differently. "You came," Iris said, sliding into the seat across from her. "I almost didn't. But you did." They looked at each other across the small table, and Elena felt the ground shift again, the same vertiginous sensation from the night before. "I don't do this," Elena said. "I don't lie to my husband. I don't meet women I barely know in coffee shops in the middle of the afternoon. I don't." "Breathe," Iris interrupted gently. "Just breathe." Elena realized she'd been talking too fast, her words tripping over themselves. She forced herself to slow down, to inhale. The coffee shop smelled like espresso and old wood impossibility. "Sorry," she said. "I'm not good at this." "At what?" Whatever this is. Iris leaned back, studying her. What do you think this is? I don't know. That's why I'm here. A small smile. Honest answer. I like that. You asked me if I was happy, Elena said. Last night. You asked and I didn't answer. And now? Elena looked down at her latte, at the careful rosetta some barista had crafted in the foam. It was already dissolving, the pattern losing coherence, becoming just swirls of brown and white. I thought I was, she said quietly. For a long time I thought I was. Marcus is. He's good. He's successful and charming and he loves me in his way. When we got married, everyone told me how lucky I was. And I believed them. But somewhere along the way, I stopped recognizing myself. I became the person he needed me to be. The beautiful wife, the gracious hostess, the silent partner who smiled at the right times and never contradicted him in public. And the worst part is, I didn't even notice it happening. I just woke up one day and realized I'd been holding my breath for years. Iris didn't say anything, just waited. Elena appreciated that, the space to speak, the absence of platitudes or easy comfort. When you looked at me last night, Elena continued, it was like you saw past all of that. Like you could see the person I used to be, before I learned to disappear. You haven't disappeared, Iris said. You're just buried under years of someone else's expectations. How do you know that? Because I was married too. For 8 years. To a man who loved the idea of me but never bothered to learn who I actually was. Iris's voice was steady, matter of fact. When I finally left, everyone acted like I'd committed a crime. My family, my friends, even my therapist at first. They kept asking what was wrong, what had he done, as if there had to be some dramatic reason. But there wasn't. It was just, I was drowning in small ways every single day, and nobody could see it because I looked fine on the surface. Elena felt something loosen in her chest. What made you leave? I met someone who made me laugh. Really laugh, not the polite laugh you give at dinner parties. And I realized I couldn't remember the last time I'd done that with my husband. Couldn't remember the last time we'd had a conversation that wasn't about logistics or schedules or his work. We'd become business partners managing a household, and somewhere in all of that, I'd forgotten that I was allowed to want more. What happened? With the person who made you laugh? Iris's smile turned sad. Nothing. She was straight, very married, very unavailable. But she woke something up in me. Made me realize that the life I was living wasn't the only option. The pronoun hung in the air between them. Elena had heard it, registered it, filed it away under things she would think about later when her brain was working properly. I'm not brave enough for that, Elena said. To leave, I mean. Maybe not yet. But Elena, here's what I know. Courage isn't something you have or don't have. It's something you practice. It's showing up. It's telling the truth. It's small moments where you choose yourself over and over. Until one day you wake up and realize you're living your actual life instead of the one someone else wrote for you. Is that what you're doing? Practicing courage. Every day. Some days I'm better at it than others. They sat in silence for a moment. Outside, the city moved past the windows, people rushing somewhere, going about their carefully scheduled lives. Elena wondered how many of them were holding their breath too. How many were trapped in houses they designed themselves? Why did you text me? Elena asked. Last night. Why risk it? Iris met her gaze directly. Because when I looked at you across that table, I saw someone who was exactly where I used to be. And I thought, maybe if someone had told me the truth back then, really told me without judgment or agenda, maybe I wouldn't have wasted so many years pretending. What truth? That you deserve to be seen. That it's okay to want something different. That the life you've built, no matter how beautiful it looks from the outside, isn't worth living if it requires you to disappear. Elena felt tears prick her eyes. She blinked them back. Refused to cry in a coffee shop in front of a woman she barely knew who was somehow saying everything she'd needed to hear for years. I should go, she said, not moving. Probably. Marcus will be home soon. He'll want to know where I was. What will you tell him? That I met with a client. That there was a problem with the library project. He won't ask for details, he never does. That's not a marriage, Iris said gently. That's a performance. Maybe, but it's my performance. I chose it. You can also choose to end it. Elena stood, gathering her purse, her phone, her untouched coffee. I don't know if I'm ready for that. I'm not asking you to be. Iris stood too. I'm just asking you to think about what ready would feel like. What it would take. What you'd need. They walked toward the door together, and just before they reached it, Iris touched Elena's hand. Barely, just her fingers grazing Elena's knuckles. Thank you for coming, Iris said. For being honest. Elena looked down at where their hands almost touched. At the space between them that was both everything and nothing. Can I see you again? Do you want to? Yes. Then yes. They exchanged numbers, real ones this time, no fake client names, no coded messages. It felt significant, like a line being crossed, like architecture being dismantled one brick at a time. Elena drove home through afternoon traffic, her mind spinning. When she pulled into the driveway, Marcus's car was already there. She sat for a moment, gathering herself, constructing the story she would tell, the version of herself she would present. Inside, Marcus was in the kitchen, pulling together something that resembled dinner. He looked up when she entered, smiled his easy smile. There you are. How was your day? Fine. Met with a client about the library project. Any problems? Nothing I can't handle. He came over, kissed her forehead. That's my girl. Always in control. Elena leaned into him, let him hold her, and thought about what Iris had said. That's not a marriage. That's a performance. Marcus, she heard herself say. Can I ask you something? Of course. Are you happy? He pulled back, looked at her with surprise. What kind of question is that? An honest one. He laughed, that same confident laugh from the dinner party. I'm married to a brilliant, beautiful woman. I've got a career I love. A house that's the envy of everyone who sees it. What's not to be happy about? That's not what I asked. The smile faltered slightly. Elena, what's this about? She looked at him, really looked at him, and saw a stranger wearing her husband's face. Or maybe she'd become a stranger, and he was still exactly who he'd always been. Nothing, she said finally. Just wondering. But as she moved through the evening, through dinner and conversation and the careful choreography of their shared life, Elena couldn't stop thinking about spaces between things, about architecture and breath, about the difference between being safe and being alive. And later, when Marcus fell asleep beside her, she took out her phone and looked at Iris's number, at the promise it represented, at all the ways her carefully constructed life was beginning to crack. She didn't text. Not yet. But she didn't delete the number either. That, she thought, might count as courage. Or it might count as cowardice. She was no longer sure she knew the difference. Chapter 4. The Unraveling. 3 weeks passed in a strange double exposure. Elena's life splitting into before and after, surface and depth, the woman she appeared to be and the woman she was becoming. She saw Iris 4 more times. Coffee twice, lunch once, a walk along the river that lasted 3 hours and felt like 3 minutes. They talked about everything and nothing, childhoods and architecture, failed relationships and favorite books, the small betrayals that accumulate over years until you wake up a stranger to yourself. They didn't touch beyond the accidental. A hand steadying an elbow, fingers brushing as they reached for the same coffee cup. But every almost touch felt electric, dangerous, like standing too close to a cliff edge and wanting to jump. Elena told herself this was friendship, that she was allowed to have a friend, allowed to have conversations that made her feel alive. Marcus had his colleagues, his golf buddies, his Thursday night poker games. Why shouldn't she have someone who saw her as more than an accessory? But she knew. Late at night, lying beside her sleeping husband, she knew exactly what this was becoming. On a Thursday in late October, Marcus announced he'd be traveling to Dubai for 2 weeks. Big presentation for the Khalil project, he said over breakfast, scrolling through his phone. Flying out Sunday. You'll be all right here on your own. Elena looked up from the architectural journal she wasn't reading. Of course. Maybe you could use the time to finish that bedroom redesign you've been talking about. Make the house perfect before the holidays. The house was already perfect. That was the problem. Maybe, she said. He didn't look up from his phone. Didn't notice the tremor in her voice, the way her hands had gone still on the table. 7 years together, and he'd never learned to read her silences. That night, she texted Iris. He's leaving for 2 weeks. The response came immediately. Are you okay? Elena stared at the question. Was she okay? She was sitting in a house worth $2 million, married to a man who'd never raised his voice to her, living a life that looked enviable from every angle. She should be more than okay. I don't know what I am, she typed. Do you want company? Yes. God, yes. That was the truth Elena had been avoiding for 3 weeks, the truth that made everything else a lie. Is that a good idea? Probably not. But I'll be there if you want me. Elena looked around the kitchen. The custom cabinets, the Italian tile, the professional-grade appliances Marcus had insisted on, though neither of them cooked. Every surface gleaming, every corner optimized. A museum of their life together, beautiful and sterile and empty. Saturday night, she typed. Come for dinner. Let me cook for you. Are you sure? No. Elena wasn't sure of anything anymore except that she was tired of being careful, tired of holding her breath, tired of living a life that required her to be someone else. Yes, she lied. Or maybe it wasn't a lie. Maybe certainty was overrated. Then I'll be there. Saturday arrived draped in October gold. The kind of autumn day that felt like a last gift before winter's reckoning. Marcus left early for the airport, kissing Elena's forehead with the same distracted affection he showed when he was focused on work. Love you. Text me when you land, she said, the words wrote. Will do. Don't burn the house down. He meant it as a joke. Elena heard it as prophecy. After his car disappeared down the tree-lined street, she stood in the foyer of their perfect house and tried to figure out who she was without him. The exercise was harder than it should have been. She spent the day cooking, something she rarely did, something Marcus didn't think she was good at. But cooking for Iris felt different. Intentional. Like an offering of her actual self rather than the curated version she'd learned to present. By 6 o'clock, the house smelled like roasted chicken and rosemary, like someone actually lived there. Elena had set the table with her everyday dishes, not the formal china Marcus insisted on for company, and opened a bottle of wine to breathe. She'd changed clothes 3 times before settling on jeans and a simple black sweater. Nothing that looked like she was trying too hard. Though of course she was trying. That was the point. The doorbell rang at 6:30. Elena's hands were shaking as she opened it. Iris stood on the porch holding flowers, wild and slightly disheveled, nothing like the formal arrangements from florists. She wore a leather jacket over a white shirt, her hair down, and when she smiled, Elena felt something in her chest crack open. Hi, Iris said. Hi. They stood there for a moment, neither quite sure how to navigate this threshold, literal and metaphorical. Then Iris held out the flowers. For you. And before you say anything, yes, I know bringing flowers to dinner is a cliché, but I've never been good at playing it cool. Elena took them, their fingers brushing. That jolt again, electric and inevitable. They're perfect. Come in. She led Iris through the house, hyper-aware of how it must look. The obvious wealth, the careful design, the impression of lives lived for external approval. But Iris didn't comment on any of it. Just followed Elena to the kitchen and leaned against the counter, watching her arrange the flowers in a vase. Something smells amazing, Iris said. I wasn't sure you'd come. Why wouldn't I? Elena set down the vase, turned to face her. Because this is dangerous. Because I'm married. Because you know where this is going and you could have said no. Iris held her gaze. I could have. But I didn't want to. Why? Because I like you. Because talking to you is the best part of my week. Because, she paused, seemed to reconsider her words. Because I'm tired of pretending I don't feel what I feel. The honesty was brutal, beautiful. Elena gripped the edge of the counter, anchoring herself. I've never done this before, she said quietly. Never cheated. Never even thought about it. We haven't done anything. Not yet. The words hung between them, an acknowledgement and an invitation. Iris pushed off from the counter, closing the distance until she was close enough that Elena could feel the heat of her. Elena, look at me. She did. Iris's eyes were steady, kind, completely present in a way Marcus's never were. Nothing has to happen tonight, Iris said. We can have dinner. We can talk. You can send me home and never speak to me again, and I'll respect that. I'm not here to pressure you into anything. Then why are you here? Because you asked me to be. And because I wanted to be here with you in whatever way you need. Elena felt tears sting her eyes. I don't know what I need. That's okay. You don't have to know yet. They stood like that, inches apart, the whole evening stretching ahead of them. Elena could step back, could restore the safe distance, could serve dinner and keep everything platonic and send Iris home with her marriage intact. Or she could step forward. The chicken will dry out if we don't eat soon, she said, not moving. Iris smiled. Then we should eat. But neither of them moved. And in that stillness Elena felt something shift. Some internal architecture collapsing. Some wall she'd built years ago finally giving way. Iris, she whispered. Yes. I'm terrified. I know. If we do this, everything changes. Yes. I could lose everything. My marriage, my house, the life I've built. You could, Iris agreed. Or you could gain yourself back. Elena closed her eyes. Behind her lids she saw two paths diverging. One familiar and safe, leading back to the life she knew. The other dark and unmapped, leading somewhere she couldn't see. When she opened them, Iris was still there, still close, still waiting. Tell me something true, Elena said. About yourself. Something real. Iris considered this. When I was married, I used to take long showers because it was the only place I could cry without being heard. I'd stand under the water and let it drown out the sound, and I'd tell myself I was fine, that every marriage had rough patches, that I just needed to try harder. It took me 3 years to realize I wasn't crying because the marriage was hard. I was crying because pretending to be happy was killing me. The confession settled between them, raw and recognizing. I don't cry in the shower, Elena said. I stand at the bedroom window at 3 in the morning and wonder who I'd be if I could start over. If I could unmake every choice that led me here. And who would you be? I don't know. That's what scares me most. Iris reached out slowly, giving Elena every chance to pull away, and touched her face. Just her fingertips against Elena's cheek, the gentlest possible contact. You don't have to know everything right now, Iris said. You just have to know what you want in this moment. Elena leaned into the touch, felt herself crossing some invisible line. I want to stop being afraid. Then stop. Should have been simple. But Elena had spent years learning to be afraid. Of disappointment, of judgment, of wanting too much or the wrong things. Fear had become her foundation, the structure that held everything else up. I don't know how, she whispered. Iris's thumb traced her cheekbone. Start small. What do you want right now in this kitchen on this night? The answer rose in Elena's throat, immediate and undeniable. You. I want you. But saying it out loud would make it real. Would make her someone who betrayed her husband, who destroyed her marriage, who chose desire over duty. Or maybe it would just make her honest. Dinner's getting cold, she said instead, stepping back. Iris let her hand fall, nodded understanding. Then let's eat. They ate at the kitchen island rather than the formal dining room. Another small rebellion. The food was good, better than Elena expected. And the wine loosened something in both of them. They talked easily, laughter coming naturally. And for stretches of time Elena forgot to be afraid. Iris told stories about her architecture firm in Chicago. About the impossible clients and inspired designs. About learning to trust her own vision, even when others doubted. Elena found herself relaxing, leaning in, watching Iris's hands as she gestured. The way her eyes lit up when she was passionate about something. Your turn, Iris said over dessert. Store-bought tiramisu because Elena's courage had limits. Tell me about a building you designed that mattered to you. Not your most famous one or the one that won awards. The one that meant something. Elena thought about it, running through her portfolio mentally. There was a house I designed 5 years ago. For a couple who just lost their daughter. She was 16, killed by a drunk driver. God. That's awful. They came to me because they wanted to rebuild. They'd been living in the same house where she grew up, and they couldn't breathe there anymore. Every room was a reminder. But they also didn't want to forget her. They wanted space to grieve and space to heal. And somehow those needed to be the same space. That's impossible. I thought so too at first. But then I realized grief isn't about choosing between memory and moving forward. It's about learning to hold both at once. Elena paused, surprised by her own words. So I designed them a house with this central courtyard, open to the sky. Glass walls on all sides so you could see it from every room. In the center a single tree, an oak because that was their daughter's favorite. And around the tree, a stone bench with her name carved into it. That's beautiful. The brilliant part, or maybe the crazy part, was that the courtyard was the only way to move through the house. To go from bedroom to kitchen, from living room to study, you had to walk past that tree. You couldn't avoid it, couldn't pretend it wasn't there. But because it was outside, because it changed with seasons and weather, it never felt static. It was a memorial that stayed alive. Iris was quiet for a moment. Did it work? The wife sent me a letter 2 years later. She said the house gave them permission to grieve differently. Some days they'd sit by the tree for hours. Other days they'd walk past quickly, almost without looking. Both were okay. The house held space for all of it. You gave them what they needed. I tried to. Elena looked down at her wine glass. I wonder sometimes if I designed that house because I understood what it felt like to need space to breathe, to feel trapped by your own life. Were you already unhappy with Marcus then? I don't think I was unhappy exactly. I think I just wasn't anything. I'd become so focused on being who he needed that I'd forgotten to be anyone at all. Iris reached across the island, covered Elena's hand with hers. This time Elena didn't pull away. You know what I think? Iris said. What? I think you've been grieving too. Not a person but a version of yourself. And you've been living in a house that won't let you breathe. The truth of it hit Elena like a physical blow. She'd been mourning herself for years, the woman she'd been before Marcus, before architecture school taught her to prioritize other people's visions, before she learned that being seen meant performing. I don't know how to rebuild, she said, her voice breaking. You already know how. You just told me. You design spaces that hold contradictions. Places where you can grieve and heal at the same time. That was for someone else. So do it for yourself. Elena looked at their joined hands, at the simple fact of Iris's fingers laced through hers. Such a small gesture. Such an enormous betrayal. Or maybe not a betrayal at all. Maybe just the first honest thing she'd done in years. Iris, she said. I need to tell you something. Okay. I'm not brave enough to leave my marriage. Not yet, maybe not ever. And that's not fair to you. You deserve someone who can choose you without hesitation. Without all this baggage and complication. Iris squeezed her hand. Can I tell you something? Yes. I'm not asking you to leave your marriage. I'm not asking you for anything except to be present with what you actually feel. To stop pretending. To give yourself permission to want something different. Even if you're not ready to act on it yet. And if I'm never ready, then we're friends. We have coffee sometimes, we talk about architecture and broken marriages and what it means to be honest. And that's enough. Is it? Elena's voice was barely a whisper. Is that really enough for you? Iris's smile was sad, knowing. No. But it's what I'll take if it's all you can give. They sat in silence, hands clasped, the kitchen warm around them. Outside, the October night deepened toward winter. Elena thought about the house with the courtyard, about spaces that held contradictions, about learning to breathe again. Stay, she heard herself say. Tonight. Don't drive home. Elena. Nothing has to happen. I don't want to be alone. I don't want you to leave. Iris studied her face. Are you sure? No. But I'm asking anyway. Okay, Iris said finally. I'll stay. They moved to the living room, to the couch Marcus had chosen because it photographed well. Iris sat at one end, Elena at the other, a careful distance between them. They talked for another hour, safer topics now, books and movies and childhood memories. But the air felt charged, possibility humming through every word. Around midnight, Elena brought out blankets and pillows. You can take the guest room, she said. Or there's the couch if you prefer. Where will you be? Upstairs. In my room. Your room, Iris repeated. Not your and Marcus's room. Does that matter? I don't know. Does it? Elena looked at her. This woman who'd somehow become essential in 3 weeks, who looked at her like she mattered, who offered honesty instead of performance. I don't want you in the guest room, she said quietly. Where do you want me? I don't know. That's the problem. I don't know what I want, only that I can't stop thinking about you. I can't stop wondering what it would feel like to. She stopped herself. To what? To be seen completely. To not have to translate myself into someone else's language. To just. She gestured helplessly. To just be. Iris stood, crossed to where Elena was standing, gave her time to step back, to maintain distance, to choose safety. Elena didn't move. Can I kiss you? Iris asked. Every reason to say no lined up in Elena's mind. Her marriage, her vows, the life she'd built, the person she'd always believed herself to be. But underneath all of that ran a current of something else, want pure and simple, undiluted by duty or obligation. Yes, she whispered. Iris cupped her face with both hands, gentle and certain, and kissed her. It was nothing like kissing Marcus, perfunctory pecks before work, obligatory intimacy that felt more like contract fulfillment than connection. This was electricity and recognition, salt and sweetness, the taste of something true. Elena's hands found Iris's waist, pulled her closer. The kiss deepened, and suddenly they were pressed together on the couch Marcus had chosen. In the house Elena had designed, kissing like drowning people, finally breaking the surface. When they finally pulled apart, both breathing hard, Elena felt tears on her face. I'm sorry, she said. I don't know why I'm crying. Iris wiped her tears with her thumbs. Because you've been holding your breath for 7 years. Because this matters. Because you're scared and exhilarated and confused, and all of that is okay. I don't know what happens now. Nothing has to happen now. We can stop. We can talk. We can pretend this didn't happen. I don't want to pretend. Then don't. They kissed again, and at some point they made their way upstairs, not to the master bedroom Elena shared with Marcus, but to the guest room, neutral territory, a space that belonged to neither of them. They lay together on top of the covers, still clothed, hands exploring tentatively, learning each other's boundaries. Every touch felt momentous, every whispered word a small revolution. Is this real? Elena asked at some point, her head on Iris's shoulder. What do you think? I think I've been living in a carefully constructed dream for so long that I've forgotten what real feels like. And now? Elena looked up at her. Now I'm terrified it's going to end. It will, Iris said simply. Everything ends eventually. Morning comes. Marcus comes home. Decisions have to be made. But right now, in this moment, we're here. Can that be enough? Elena didn't know. But she kissed Iris again, and for now that felt like answer enough. They fell asleep like that, tangled together, fully clothed, the house dark around them. And for the first time in years, Elena slept without holding her breath. Chapter 5, the morning after. Elena woke to unfamiliar warmth. For a disorienting moment, she didn't know where she was. Not the master bedroom, not her side of the bed she'd occupied for 7 years. Then memory flooded back. Iris's mouth on hers, hands gentle and certain. The guest room spinning slowly as the world rearranged itself. Iris was still asleep, face peaceful in the gray morning light filtering through the curtains. Elena's arm was numb where Iris's head rested on it, but she didn't move. She studied her instead. The curve of her jaw, the dark lashes against pale skin, the small scar above her left eyebrow that Elena had traced with her finger the night before. What have I done? The thought arrived with crystalline clarity, bringing its companions. Guilt, fear, exhilaration. She was an adulteress now. That word, old-fashioned and damning. She'd crossed a line she couldn't uncross, become someone she'd never imagined being. Except she had imagined it. Every time she'd looked at Iris over the past 3 weeks. Every time Marcus had touched her and she'd felt nothing. Every sleepless night when she'd wondered if this was all there was. This beautiful, hollow life. Iris stirred, eyes opening slowly. When she saw Elena watching her, she smiled, soft, unguarded, real. Hi, she whispered. Hi. What time is it? Elena glanced at the window. Early. 7 maybe. How long have you been awake? A while. Iris's smile faded. You're regretting this. I don't know what I'm feeling. That's honest at least. They lay in silence for a moment. Elena could hear the house settling around them, the familiar creaks and sighs of the structure she'd designed. It sounded different this morning. Or maybe she was different and everything else remained the same. I should make coffee, Elena said, not moving. Elena, look at me. She did. Iris's eyes were kind, patient, devastatingly present. Whatever you're thinking right now, that you've ruined everything, that you're a terrible person, that this was a mistake, stop. We're human. We're allowed to want things. We're allowed to make choices that don't fit the story we've been telling ourselves. I'm married. I know. I made vows. I know that too. Then how can you lie here and tell me this is okay? Iris sat up, and Elena immediately missed her warmth. I'm not telling you it's okay or not okay. I'm telling you that moral certainty is a luxury we don't always get. Sometimes we have to live in the mess and figure it out as we go. Elena sat up too, pulling her knees to her chest. I don't know how to live in mess. I design buildings. I create order out of chaos. That's what I do. Is it working for you? All that order? The question hung in the morning air. Elena thought about her meticulously organized life, her perfect house, her carefully maintained marriage. From the outside it looked like success. From the inside it felt like suffocation. No, she said quietly. It's not working. Then maybe it's time to try something different. Like what? Blow up my marriage? Destroy everything I've built? Become the woman who had an affair and ruined her life for? She stopped herself. For what? I don't even know what this is. What we are. Iris reached out, tucked a strand of hair behind Elena's ear. The gesture was so tender it made Elena's chest ache. We're two people who see each other, Iris said. That's all. That's everything. The rest, labels, definitions, what comes next we can figure out. But Elena, you need to understand something. I'm not asking you to blow up your life for me. I'm asking you to consider whether the life you have is worth protecting. That's not fair. Marcus is a good man. Being good isn't the same as being right for you. Elena stood, needing distance, needing to move. She walked to the window, looked out at the manicured lawn, the sculptural plantings, the neighborhood of expensive houses filled with expensive lives. When I married Marcus, I thought I knew what I wanted, she said to the window. Security. Success. Someone who was certain about things when I wasn't certain about anything. He was like gravity, solid, unmovable. I thought that's what love was supposed to feel like. And now I think maybe I was just tired of floating. I wanted to land somewhere, anywhere, and he seemed like safe ground. She turned back to Iris. But you make me want to fly. That terrifies you. Yes. It should. Flying means letting go. It means trusting yourself instead of someone else's certainty. It's easier to stay on solid ground, even if you're miserable there. Elena crossed her arms, holding herself together. So what do I do? Leave my husband because I kissed someone who makes me feel alive for the first time in years? That's not a plan. That's not even rational. Since when is love rational? Don't say that. Say what? Love. This isn't. We barely know each other. Iris stood, came to her, stopped just close enough that Elena could feel the heat of her. You're right. We barely know each other. But I know how you look when you're trying not to cry. I know you designed a house for grieving parents because you understood what it meant to need space to breathe. I know you stand at windows at 3 in the morning wondering who you'd be if you could start over. I know that when I kiss you, you kiss me back like you're drowning and I'm air. Elena felt tears streak down her face. That's not love. That's just need. Maybe at first. But I also know you laugh at terrible jokes and cook when you're nervous and say exactly what you mean when you forget to be scared. I know you're brilliant and kind and so goddamn brave you don't even see it. So yes, we barely know each other. But I want to know everything. And that feels like the beginning of something, even if neither of us knows what to call it yet. Elena reached for her then, pulled her close, buried her face in Iris's shoulder. They stood like that for a long time, Elena crying quietly while Iris held her. Neither of them offering solutions because there weren't any. Just this moment, this honest grief for all the ways life doesn't give you easy choices. I need to shower, Elena said finally, pulling back. I need to think. Okay. Will you still be here when I'm done? Do you want me to be? I don't know. Maybe. Yes. Elena laughed, the sound broken. God, I sound insane. You sound human. Elena touched Iris's face, memorizing it. Give me an hour. Then we'll talk. Really talk. About what this means, what happens next, all of it. I'll make coffee. I remember where everything is from last night. Last night. Already it felt like a different lifetime. A different Elena who'd let herself want something without permission. Elena showered in the master bathroom, Marcus's bathroom, their bathroom, and tried not to think about what it meant that she was washing another woman's scent off her skin. The water was too hot, punishing, and she welcomed it. Needed it. When she emerged, wrapped in a towel, she could smell coffee drifting up from downstairs. Iris, in her kitchen in her house, making herself at home in the space between Elena's old life and whatever came next. She dressed carefully, jeans, a soft sweater, nothing too formal or too casual. Armor of normalcy. Then she went downstairs to face whatever truth was waiting for her. Iris had made coffee and toast, set 2 mugs on the kitchen island like this was normal, like they did this every morning. She'd changed back into yesterday's clothes, hair pulled into a messy knot, and she looked so naturally beautiful that Elena's breath caught. Strong and black, right? Iris said, sliding a mug toward her. You remembered. I remember everything. They sat across from each other, the island between them like a negotiating table. Elena wrapped her hands around the warm mug, gathering courage. We need to talk about what happens now, she said. I know. Marcus comes back in 12 days. I need to figure out what I'm going to tell him. What I'm going to do. About us. About everything. Iris sipped her coffee, considering. Can I ask you something first? Yes. If you'd never met me, if I hadn't come to that dinner party, if we'd never had these last 3 weeks, would you still be unhappy in your marriage? Elena didn't hesitate. Yes. Then this isn't about me. This is about you and Marcus and a marriage that stopped working. If it ever really worked at all. That's too simple. Is it? Or is it just uncomfortable? Elena set down her mug. I'm not saying the marriage was perfect, but it was functional. We had a life. We had plans, children someday when the timing was right. Growing old together. All the things you're supposed to want. Supposed to. That phrase right there. That's your problem. What do you mean? You're living a life you're supposed to want instead of one you actually want. You married a man you're supposed to love because he checked all the right boxes. You designed this house to look how a successful architect's home is supposed to look. You're performing happiness because that's what you're supposed to do. But Elena, when do you get to stop performing? When do you get to just be? The words landed like blows, each one true, each one devastating. Maybe never, Elena said quietly. Maybe this is just what adult life is. Compromise. Duty. Making the best of your choices. That's what my ex-husband used to say. Right up until I left him and discovered that life could be more than just enduring. And what if I leave Marcus and end up alone? What if I give up everything I have for what? The possibility of something better? That's not a guarantee. No, it's not. It's a risk. I don't take risks. Iris smiled sadly. You took one last night. Elena felt heat rise to her face. That was different. How? Because it was. She struggled for words. It was just one night. One mistake. I can still fix this. I can pretend it didn't happen, can recommit to my marriage, can be better. Elena, stop. Iris's voice was sharp now, cutting through the rationalization. Listen to yourself. You're already rewriting last night as a mistake instead of what it actually was. What was it then? Honest. It was honest. Maybe the first honest thing you've done in your marriage. That's not fair. Isn't it? You told me yourself. Marcus doesn't ask for details. He doesn't notice when you're lying. Your whole relationship is built on performance and convenience. Last night for a few hours you stopped performing. You let yourself want something, feel something, be someone real. And now you're calling it a mistake because being real is scarier than pretending. Elena stood, agitated, needing to move. You don't understand. You're not married. You don't have. I was married, Iris interrupted. For 8 years, remember? And I spent 7 of those years telling myself exactly what you're telling yourself right now. That I'd made a choice and had to live with it. That compromise was part of being an adult. That wanting more was selfish. You know what I learned? What? That staying in a marriage that's killing you isn't noble. It's just slow suicide. The words hit Elena like cold water. She leaned against the counter, suddenly exhausted. I don't know if I'm brave enough, she whispered. To leave. To start over. To be alone. You won't be alone. You can't promise that. No, I can't. But Elena, you're already alone. You're alone in a marriage where your husband doesn't see you. You're alone in this beautiful house you designed to distract yourself from how empty your life feels. At least if you leave, you'll be honestly alone instead of pretending you're not. Elena closed her eyes. Behind her lids she saw two futures. One where she sent Iris away, cleaned up the evidence of last night, and went back to her careful performance. And one where she admitted the truth, to Marcus, to herself, to anyone who asked, and faced the wreckage that would follow. Both futures terrified her. Only one felt like living. I need time, she said finally. I need to think. I can't make this decision right now, not with you here, not while everything feels so overwhelming. Yes. Iris set down her coffee, came around the island. She didn't touch Elena, just stood close enough to be felt. I'll go, she said. I'll give you space. But Elena, please don't spend the next 12 days talking yourself out of what you felt last night. Don't let fear convince you that miserable and stable is better than uncertain and alive. And what if I decide to stay with Marcus? Then I'll respect that. I'll walk away. You'll never hear from me again if that's what you need. Just like that. Just like that. Because I care about you enough to want you to be happy, even if your happiness doesn't include me. Elena felt tears threatening again. I don't deserve that. I don't deserve you. Maybe not. But you deserve better than what you have. That much I know. They stood in silence, the morning brightening outside, the real world pressing in. Elena thought about Marcus, about vows and promises and the architecture of commitment. Thought about Iris, about honesty and risk and the terrifying freedom of being seen. I'll call you, Elena said. When I know. When I've figured out what I want. Take whatever time you need. Iris gathered her jacket, her keys. At the door she turned back. One more thing, she said. Yes. Last night wasn't a mistake. It was a choice. You choosing yourself, maybe for the first time in years. Whatever you decide going forward, don't take that away from yourself. Don't let guilt or fear convince you that feeling alive was wrong. Then she was gone, and Elena was alone in her perfect house with her imperfect choices, and she had 12 days to decide what kind of person she wanted to be. Chapter 6. The In-Between. The first 3 days after Iris left, Elena did nothing. She moved through her house like a ghost, unable to work, unable to sleep properly, unable to do anything but replay the last month on an endless loop. Marcus called every evening, brief, distracted conversations about his meetings and the Dubai heat and when he'd be home. Elena made appropriate sounds, asked appropriate questions, and every time she hung up, she felt like a fraud. On the 4th day, her best friend Gabrielle showed up unannounced. You look like hell, Gabrielle announced, pushing past Elena into the foyer. She was carrying groceries and wine, clearly planning to stay. When's the last time you ate something that wasn't coffee? I'm fine. You're a terrible liar. Kitchen. Now. Elena followed her, helpless. Gabrielle had been her friend since architecture school, had been her maid of honor, was the one person who occasionally called her on her bullshit. She was also relentlessly straight, happily married to her high school sweetheart, and the last person Elena wanted to have this conversation with. But Gabrielle was already unpacking food, pulling out pans, taking over her kitchen with the ease of 15 years of friendship. Talk, Gabrielle said, not looking up from the vegetables she was chopping. About what? About whatever's making you look like you're grieving. Did something happen with Marcus? Yes. No. Everything. Nothing. We're fine, Elena said. Bullshit. Gabrielle. Elena. Gabrielle set down the knife, turned to face her. I've known you since we were 22 years old. I know what you look like when you're happy, when you're stressed, when you're overwhelmed with work. This is different. This is heartbreak. I'm not. Did Marcus cheat on you? No. Did you cheat on Marcus? The question landed in the kitchen like a bomb. Elena's face must have given her away because Gabrielle's eyes went wide. Oh my God. You did. You actually. She sat down heavily on a bar stool. Who? It doesn't matter. The hell it doesn't. Elena, you're the most loyal person I know. You once drove 3 hours to return a wallet you found in a parking lot. You don't cheat. So whoever this is must be. Gabrielle paused, studying her face. You're in love with them. I barely know them. That's not an answer. Elena slumped against the counter, all the energy draining out of her. Her name is Iris. She works with Marcus. She came to dinner a month ago and looked at me like she could see me. And I don't know what I feel except that everything I thought I knew about myself is falling apart. Gabrielle was quiet for a long moment. Then, her. Yes. You're gay. I don't know what I am. I've always thought I was straight, but now I don't know if that's true, or if I was just never given an opportunity to figure it out. Does Marcus know? God, no. He's in Dubai. He doesn't know anything. Gabrielle stood, poured 2 large glasses of wine, pushed one toward Elena. Start from the beginning. Tell me everything. So Elena did. She told her about the dinner party, about the coffee shop meetings, about Saturday night and Sunday morning and the 12 days stretching ahead of her like a prison sentence. She told her about feeling invisible in her own marriage, about designing other people's dreams while forgetting she was allowed to have her own. Gabrielle listened without interrupting, her face cycling through shock, concern, and something that might have been understanding. When Elena finished, Gabrielle drained her wine glass and refilled it. Okay, she said finally. I have questions. I figured. First, are you in love with this woman or are you in love with how she makes you feel? Elena considered this. I don't know. Both? Does it matter? Yes, because one is sustainable and one isn't. If you're just chasing a feeling, that's called a midlife crisis, and you can have that without blowing up your marriage. But if you're actually in love, if this person sees you in a way Marcus never has, that's different. I think, Elena paused, searching for truth. I think she makes me remember who I used to be, before I learned to be who Marcus needed. And I think I'm in love with her, but I'm also in love with that version of myself. The one who hasn't forgotten how to want things. So what are you going to do? I don't know. That's why I've been hiding in this house for 4 days. Gabrielle sipped her wine thoughtfully. Can I tell you something that might sound harsh? Please. I never understood your marriage. Elena blinked. What? I love you and I like Marcus fine, but I never understood why you married him. You were this brilliant, passionate woman in school, you had opinions about everything, you argued with professors, you designed buildings that made people cry. Then you met Marcus and you just shrank. You became the supporting character in his story. That's not. It is though. He talks, you listen. He decides, you accommodate. He wants the spotlight, you gracefully step aside. And you've been doing it for so long, I think you've forgotten that's not how it has to be. Elena felt something crack in her chest. Why didn't you ever say anything? Because you seemed happy. Or at least content. And who am I to tell you what your marriage should look like? But Elena, since you're asking my opinion, and I think you are or you wouldn't have told me all this, here it is. A marriage should make you more yourself, not less. It should expand who you are, not diminish you. And whatever you have with Marcus, it's not doing that. So you think I should leave him? I think you should figure out what you actually want, independent of Marcus or Iris or anyone else. What would make you happy? Not content, not comfortable. Actually happy. Elena closed her eyes, tried to imagine it. I want to feel like I matter. Like my thoughts and opinions and desires are worth something. I want to design buildings that mean something to me, not just to clients or critics. I want to laugh without calculating whether it's appropriate. She opened her eyes, looked at Gabrielle. I want to stop holding my breath. Then stop. It's not that simple. It is actually. It's terrifying and complicated and messy, but it's simple. You decide what you want and then you choose it. Everything else is just details. And if I choose wrong, then you choose again. Elena, you're not trapped. You're just scared. There's a difference. They sat in silence, Gabrielle's words settling into Elena's bones. Outside, the November afternoon was fading toward evening. Soon it would be dark, and she'd be alone again with her choices. Stay for dinner, Elena said. Please. I don't want to be alone tonight. Obviously I'm staying. I brought groceries. Gabrielle cooked and they ate, and for a few hours Elena felt almost normal. They talked about Gabrielle's kids, about a project Elena was supposed to be working on but couldn't focus on, about anything except the enormous decision looming over everything. But later, after Gabrielle left, Elena lay in bed, the guest bed. She couldn't sleep in the master bedroom anymore, and thought about choice, about breath, about the difference between being trapped and being scared. She picked up her phone, found Iris's number. "I'm not ready yet," she typed. "But I'm trying to be." The response came a few minutes later. "That's all I'm asking. Take your time." Elena set the phone on the nightstand and stared at the ceiling. 8 more days until Marcus came home. 8 more days to decide who she wanted to be. On day 7, Elena did something she hadn't done in years. She went to her old architecture professor's office hours. Dr. Sarah Chun was 73 now, emerita faculty but still kept an office at the university. She'd been Elena's mentor in graduate school. The one who'd pushed her hardest, believed in her most. "Elena Shaw," Dr. Chun said when she appeared in the doorway. "Or is it still Sutton? I can never remember if you kept your name." "I kept it. For professional reasons." "Good. Sit down. Tell me why you're here. You look troubled." Elena sat in the same chair she'd occupied a dozen years ago, when the world felt full of possibility. Dr. Chen's office was unchanged, books piled everywhere, sketches pinned to every surface, the organized chaos of a brilliant mind. "I'm thinking about leaving my husband," Elena said. No preamble, no build-up. Just truth. Dr. Chun didn't look surprised. "What took you so long?" "I'm sorry. I met your husband once. At your graduation. He spent the entire reception talking about himself while you stood next to him and nodded. I remember thinking, she's going to disappear in that marriage." Elena felt tears prick her eyes. "You never said anything. Would you have listened?" "No. Probably not. So I waited. Figured you'd find your way eventually. Some people need to learn the hard way that comfortable isn't the same as happy." Dr. Chun leaned back in her chair. "What finally made you see it?" "Someone else. Someone who looked at me and saw." Elena struggled for words. "Saw the architect I used to be. The person I was before I learned to make myself small." "Ah. An affair. I kissed her once. Is that an affair?" "Doesn't matter what you call it. Matters what it showed you." Elena looked down at her hands. "It showed me that I've been living a half-life. That I've been so focused on being a good wife that I forgot to be anything else. And now you want to know if it's worth it to blow everything up for this woman? I guess." Dr. Chun stood, walked to her bookshelf, pulled down a leather portfolio. She opened it, showed Elena a series of architectural sketches. Rough, energetic, alive with possibility. "Recognize these?" Elena studied them. They were hers, from graduate school, from before she'd learned to be practical and marketable. Buildings that defied gravity, spaces that bent light in impossible ways, architecture as art rather than commodity. "I can't believe you kept these," Elena whispered. "I kept them because they reminded me of who you were. A designer who thought anything was possible, who broke rules and questioned assumptions and created spaces that made people feel something." Dr. Chun closed the portfolio. "Then you married Marcus Sutton and you started designing what he thought was appropriate. What would impress clients? What would photograph well? And every year I watched you get a little smaller, a little more careful, a little more lost. I was being practical. You were being afraid." Elena looked up at her. "So what do I do? Stop asking me. Stop asking this woman. Stop asking anyone except yourself. Elena, you're a brilliant architect. You know how to look at a structure and see what's working and what's not. So look at your life the same way. Is the foundation solid? Are the bones good? Or are you trying to save a building that was never designed to hold who you actually are? I don't know how to tell the difference anymore." "Then maybe that's your answer." They sat in silence. Outside, students hurried past, their lives still unwritten. Elena remembered being one of them, full of conviction, unburdened by compromise. "I met someone," Elena said quietly, "who makes me remember what it felt like to be certain about things, to have opinions, to take up space. Is she the reason you're leaving? Or is she just the catalyst? I don't know. Figure it out. Because if she's the reason, you're making the same mistake you made with Marcus, looking to someone else to define you. But if she's just the catalyst, if leaving is about you choosing yourself, then maybe it's the smartest thing you could do. Elena stood, feeling both more confused and more clear than when she'd arrived. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. This is going to get messy. Divorce always is. Especially when you married someone who thinks he owns you. Marcus doesn't. Doesn't he? When's the last time you made a major decision without checking with him first? Elena couldn't answer. That's what I thought. Dr. Chun walked her to the door. One more thing, Elena. Whatever you decide, stay or leave this woman or not, promise me you'll start designing for yourself again. Real buildings. The ones that scare you because they're honest. The world has enough pretty empty structures. It needs more buildings that make people feel something. I'll try. Don't try. Do. You're too talented to waste your life on safe choices. Elena left the office with her old sketches under her arm, physical evidence of who she used to be. She drove home through late afternoon traffic, and somewhere between the university and her perfect house, she made a decision. She needed to tell Marcus the truth. Not about Iris specifically, that felt cruel and unnecessary, but about the marriage, about herself, about the fact that comfortable wasn't enough anymore. It would destroy him, would destroy the life they'd built, would make her the villain in their story, but staying would destroy her. And maybe Elena thought that was the real choice. Whose life do you save? Chapter 7: The Return. Marcus came home on a Tuesday triumphant. The Dubai project was a success, the client had been impressed, his career trajectory was secure. He burst through the door with gifts: perfume for Elena, expensive chocolates, a silk scarf she'd never wear. God, I missed you, he said, pulling her into a hug that felt more habitual than heartfelt. How was your 2 weeks? Did you finish that bedroom redesign? No. I need to talk to you. He was already moving past her, heading to the kitchen, talking about the flight and the meetings and his colleague who'd embarrassed himself by getting food poisoning. Elena followed, trying to find the words she'd rehearsed, trying to remember the courage she'd felt in Dr. Chen's office. Marcus, I need you to stop and listen. Something in her tone made him turn. What's wrong? Nothing's wrong exactly. But we need to have a conversation about our marriage. His face did something complicated, confusion giving way to concern, giving way to defensive certainty. If this is about the time I've been spending on work, I told you this year is crucial. Next year will be better. We'll take that trip to Paris you've been wanting. I don't want a trip to Paris. Then what do you want? To breathe, she thought. To be seen. To matter. I want, she said carefully, for us to be honest about what this marriage is. What it is. Elena, I don't understand. We're happy. We have a good life. We're planning for children. When? The word came out sharper than she intended. When are we planning for children, Marcus? You've been saying next year for 3 years now, and I'm starting to think you don't actually want them. You just want me to think we're working towards something. He bristled. That's not fair. My career requires. I know. Your career requires focus. Your career requires sacrifice. Your career requires me to be patient and supportive and wait for someday. She took a breath. But Marcus, what about my career? What about what I want? You have your career. You're a successful architect. Because I design what clients want. What you think is appropriate. I haven't designed something I actually cared about in 5 years. That's what being an adult is, Elena. Compromise. Professionalism. You can't just design whatever whimsical. I'm not talking about whimsy. I'm talking about meaning. About creating something that matters instead of just something that looks good in photographs. Marcus crossed his arms and Elena recognized the posture. It's what he did when he was about to be patient with someone he thought was being irrational. Okay, he said, voice careful. I can see you're upset. Let's sit down, talk this through calmly. I don't want to sit down. And I don't want you to manage me like one of your difficult clients. Elena felt something building in her chest, years of swallowed words finally finding their way out. I want you to actually hear what I'm saying. Our marriage isn't working. Because of your career? Elena, if you want to take on more personal projects, we can make that happen. You just need to be strategic about it. It's not about strategy. It's about the fact that you're treating this conversation like a business problem, instead of listening to your wife tell you she's unhappy. The word hung between them. Marcus's face went very still. You're unhappy? He said it like he was testing the words, like they made no sense. Yes. But we have everything. The house, the life, the plans. We have your plans, Marcus. Your house. Your life. Somewhere along the way I disappeared into all of it, and you never even noticed. He sat down then heavily on one of the bar stools. I don't understand. Did something happen while I was gone? Did you? His eyes went sharp. Did you meet someone? Elena's heart hammered. This was the moment. She could lie, could pretend this was only about them, could protect him from the full truth. Or she could be honest. Yes, she said quietly. I met someone who made me realize how lost I'd become. The color drained from Marcus's face. You had an affair. I kissed someone. Once. But Marcus, that's not what this is about. Jesus Christ. He stood, paced, ran his hands through his hair. Who? How long? It doesn't matter. The hell it doesn't. My wife had an affair while I was traveling for work. It wasn't an affair. And if you'd actually been present in this marriage, you might have noticed I was drowning. Don't you dare blame this on me. I gave you everything. You gave me a house and a lifestyle and a role to play. But Marcus, you never asked what I actually wanted. You never asked if I was happy. You just assumed because the life looked good from outside that everything was fine. So instead of talking to me about it, you decided to fuck around. I didn't fuck anyone. Elena's voice rose, frustration finally breaking through. I had coffee with someone. I talked to them about things I couldn't talk to you about. They looked at me and saw a person instead of a supporting character in your story. And yes, I kissed them, and it woke me up to how much I'd disappeared. Marcus stared at her, and Elena watched him cycle through emotions, hurt, anger, confusion. Finally, he landed on the one she'd expected. Control. Okay, he said, voice forcibly calm. Okay, you're right. I've been focused on work, and I haven't been as present as I should be. We can fix this. We'll go to therapy. I'll make more time. Will the space between us?